In this MaxTow gauges installation video, we'll show you how to install a MaxTow match diesel gauge package, including a 60 psi boost, exhaust gas temperature, fuel pressure, and transmission temperature gauge for your 2003 to 2009 Ram 2500 and 3500 3rd Gen Cummins. For the purpose of this installation, we will be using a 2006 Ram 2500 with a 5.9-liter Cummins engine and 48RE transmission. The gauges will be installed to a factory-fitted 3rd Gen Cummins pillar pod. We will also use a boost bolt adapter, 1/8 NPT drill and tap set, Banjo bolt and Snubber valve combo, transmission test port extender, 4-gauge wiring kit, and 3 mini expandable circuits for installation. All of these accessories can be found at MaxTow.com. For safety, disconnect the negative battery terminals before starting any work on the vehicle. Locate and remove the front interior intake heater grid bolt on the driver's side of the engine bay using a 10mm socket with an extension. Install the boost bolt using a 17mm socket and torque wrench, and torque to 10 foot-pounds. Install the boost sensor using a 22mm wrench while holding the boost bolt with a 17mm wrench. Plug the sensor harness into the boost sensor and route to the driver's side of the engine bay, using zip ties to secure the harness. Ensure there is no contact with any direct heat source or moving parts of the truck. Run the sensor harness through the firewall and into the cabin of the truck using a grommet. Locate a flat portion of the exhaust manifold on the passenger side of the engine bay and mark the location where you're going to drill a hole using a center punch right above the turbo mount. Keep in mind that there is a divider in the middle, so you will need to drill on either side of the divider to ensure the hole is unobstructed. Starting with a 1/8 inch drill bit, drill a pilot hole into the exhaust manifold. Continue increasing the size of the pilot hole using various drill bits until you reach drill bit size R. Ensure all shavings are out of the manifold by periodically using a vacuum and a pin magnet to remove them. Using cutting oil, tap the hole to 1/8 27 NPT. Ensure all shavings are out of the manifold by periodically using a vacuum and a pin magnet to remove them. Apply anti-seize to the threads of the EGT ferrule fitting and thread the fitting into the exhaust manifold. Tighten the fitting with a 14mm wrench. Install the gauge's EGT probe into the ferrule fitting adapter, ensuring the sensor is positioned approximately halfway into the manifold. Tighten using a 14mm wrench. Route the EGT probe harness up to the firewall and use zip ties to secure the wire. Plug in the EGT probe harness extension to the EGT probe. Run the sensor harness through the firewall using a grommet. Locate the fuel filter housing on the driver's side of the engine bay and loosen the yellow fuel bowl petcock to drain the fuel. Place a drain pan under the truck to catch any excess fuel. Using a 17mm wrench, remove the Banjo bolt on the bottom of the fuel filter housing. Thread the sensor into the Banjo bolt snubber combo adapter and tighten using 17mm and 22mm wrenches. Using the new supplied crush washers, install the Banjo bolt and fuel line back into the fuel filter housing. Tighten using a 17mm wrench. Connect the sensor harness to the sensor and secure the wire away from moving parts. Run the sensor harness through the engine bay of the truck and through the firewall using a grommet. Apply Teflon tape clockwise to the threads of the temperature sensor and the transmission test port extender. Thread the sensor into the test port extender and tighten using a 14mm and 17mm wrench. Safely jack up the truck. Have a drain pan available for any fluid that may leak. Using an 11mm wrench, remove the plug located at the center test port on the passenger side of the transmission. Thread the test port extender and the sensor into the transmission. Tighten using a 17mm wrench. Plug the transmission temperature sensor harness to the temperature sensor. Route the transmission temperature sensor harness up to the firewall to the driver's side of the engine bay and use zip ties to secure the sensor wires. Ensure there is no contact with any direct heat source or moving parts. Run the sensor harness through the firewall using a grommet. Remove the factory A-pillar using an 8mm socket. Move the weather strip out of the way and remove the side trim panel of the dash. Install the full replacement 4-gauge A-pillar pod using the supplied mounting bolt and a 4mm Allen key. Route the 4-gauge power harness through the gauge pod down through the dash and through the grommet into the engine bay. Route the sensor harness through the dash and into the gauge locations on the gauge pod. We have boost in the top position, EGT in the upper middle, fuel pressure in the lower middle, and trans temp in the bottom position. Reinstall the side trim panel for the dash. Reinstall the weather stripping. Plug the power harness and sensor harness into the back of each designated gauge and slide the gauges into the gauge pod. To prepare the gauge for power, reconnect the negative terminals of both batteries. Remove the fuse box cover. Pull the power harness from the gauge through the firewall to the fuse box location under the hood. Locate fuse number 31 in the fuse panel for constant 12-volt power. Locate fuse number 33 in the fuse panel for ignition-only 12-volt power. Locate fuse number 16 in the fuse panel for headlight-only 12-volt power. Using an expandable circuit, crimp it to the yellow wire. Insert the fuse into the circuit and insert the circuit into the empty fuse number 31 slot. Using a second expandable circuit, crimp it to the red wire. Insert the fuse into the circuit and insert the circuit into the empty fuse number 33 slot. Using a third expandable circuit, crimp it to the orange wire. Insert the fuse into the circuit and insert the circuit into the empty fuse number 16 slot. Using an eyelet connector, secure the black wire from the gauge to the grounding bolt next to the fuse box using a 10mm socket. Reinstall the fuse box cover. Before starting the truck, be sure to cycle the key a few times to prime the fuel system. Once the system has been primed, start the truck. Check the transmission fluid level according to the manufacturer's specifications. Top off if needed. Confirm that all gauges are functioning properly and check for any leaks. You've now successfully installed your MaxTow Match 4 gauge diesel set into your 2003 to 2009 Ram 3rd Gen Cummins diesel truck. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, please contact us at 1-877-7-MAXTOW, and we'll see you on the road.